All right, guys, it's been a little bit since I've done an update and we've done a lot of work. I was hoping to get some video as we were doing the work, but we had a lot going on the other day, had a lot of people here, so we were just trying to get through the work. So let me give you an update where we're at. So got a new piece of equipment, so different camera. We're gonna see how it works out. It looks like it's going to be a little bit better. I can see what actually is going on with it a little bit easier. So the Jeep motor that we were taking apart, it's over here behind me. It's literally just below frame. I'm going to see if I can get a different camera mount later. You're actually sitting on the drill press, the plate on the drill press, leaning up against the crank to wind it up and down, because I don't have a tripod for this particular camera yet. But so Rich came over and we really focused on trying to get the F134 motor apart, and we made a lot of headway in getting that apart. Like I said, I wish I had gotten video of it, but we had a bunch of people here. We had one guy who was changing his brakes in the driveway, another guy working on the shrine cart, another guy came over, dropped his four-wheeler off, which is sitting right outside there, that I've got to rebuild the carburetor on for this weekend. And of course we were doing the motor, the F-head motor. So with the Jeep motor, we suspected that there was a problem in the bottom end of it because it was really making a horrible knocking noise. Anytime you put any sort of pressure on the motor, it would idle, it'd sound okay, but if you revved it or if you put any sort of load on it, it would get a really bad knocking sound, which sounds like bad bearings in the bottom end. And when we took that motor apart, here's the number one piston. You can see it says number one right there. But more importantly, this one, unlike the replacement motor that's in the Jeep right now, actually has markings on the shoulder, so you can see one and one. They're stamped to match each other. This one goes together pretty well. Notice there's no bearing in here. The bearing, when we took this off, actually stayed on the journal, and I don't know how well this camera's going to pick it up. You can see there's some scarring going on in there. Well, what had happened, this particular bearing had seized to the journal. This is the bearing that goes in there. And as you can see, the bearing was spinning along with the crankshaft journal, and the connecting rod was spinning around the outside of it rather than the other way around. This is supposed to stay with the connecting rod, and the crankshaft journal rotates around the inside. And you can see it's worn down to where it's almost worn through the bearing. So this one looks in pretty rough shape. So these two came off of the number one. Definitely a spun bearing, definitely what we thought was going on with it. The other bearings don't look that bad at all. They're actually still down there in the pistons. All the pistons are out sitting on the floor. We made sure that we marked which end goes to the front of the motor and which one it is. But also, like I said, the shoulders on these are marked correctly. If you remember the video I did with the other Jeep motor, the shoulders are marked all sorts of different ways. The top of them are marked differently. These don't have a pen or any sort of hard marking in the piston. So if we clean these, we may lose which direction it went in. But because there is an actual offset down here, it's only really going to go in one way. But it's good to have a nice marking. Plus, we made some notes that when it all goes together, this shoulder right here is on the oil pump side, so it's only going to go in one way. And if it does actually physically fit the other way, we're just going to flip it the other way so that we know exactly how it came out. That being said, we did a visual inspection of the block, and it looks to be in really good shape. There's no major scoring in cylinders. There's no other cracks or breaks that we can find yet. We still have to clean it. We're going to have it hot tanked, dipped, whatever you want to call it. Really clean it all the way through, get every bit of grease and dirt out of it so we can really inspect it. Planning on having it bored out. There was some discussion that we might have to because it is an old motor, but as far as compression and the rings and all that seem to be in pretty good shape. So the plan is not to bore it out if I don't have to. I'm really kind of looking at cleaning it and putting in new camshaft bearings, have the crankshaft polished, mic'd, so we can get the right size bearings for it, the right size bearings for the connecting rod caps, and then put it all back together. New seals, of course. The rear main seal, totally junk on it. Actually, I have the rear main seal. Hold on. In case you haven't seen the rear main seal on these, never mind all the sawdust. It's a 2-piece rear main seal. Goes right around the crankshaft, just like this. Okay, so when it's all together, it does not have all that sawdust on it. And it seals tightly around the crankshaft, keeps all the oil on the inside. Now this one, I don't know how old it is. It's probably not original. We actually found an indicator inside there that it has been taken apart at least once, but it doesn't look like it's been machined. There's a screw that had the head of it kind of chewed up a little bit, like somebody tried to unscrew it. And when we tried to unscrew it, it wasn't moving, so it kind of widened out the slot in the head of the screw a little bit more, so it looks like somebody else tried to get in there before. But we can't find any machining indications. So anyway, this is the rear main seal, and the point that I'm trying to point out to you is that it's absolutely really hard. It's supposed to be flexible. It's kind of a rubber type compound. This one is really, really hard, stiff, so it's not doing its job anymore. You need to get a nice, soft, pliable one in there. So rear main seal is really kind of small on this thing. I was really surprised at how small this piece is. But that's going to get replaced. We got the main bearings. These looked in pretty decent shape. They're obviously worn, but there's no major problems with AC. Definitely quite a bit of idle time on the motor, but no major scarring, no indications that they had spun or anything like that. And there's the other one. So they're going to get replaced. We'll get new ones in there just for the sake of completeness of putting good parts in there. And then we got the caps that they go into. These are going to get all cleaned up, but they're looking in decent shape. You can see where the rear main seal goes in here, the bearing goes here. Like I said, the bearing's still in there. So it looks halfway decent, a little bit worn, but not too bad. So we'll get all that cleaned up, put new bearings in it, and hopefully it won't take too long. So the biggest thing I've got to do right now is get a hold of a machine shop and see if they can do the work on it. A lot of the machine shops closed down during the pandemic. I know out where my dad is, a lot of machine shops are just no longer in business. They don't have the people and they don't have the work to stay open. People aren't rebuilding engines as much as they used to. I won't say they're not redoing it at all, but it's really not that much. I mean, honestly, I actually don't know anybody else that rebuilds engines on any sort of regular basis. I know people that have done it in the past, but out here where I live, I'm the only person I know that rebuilds engines that I can think of off the top of my head. If any of my friends are rebuilding them more than I am, let me know, because I don't know about it. What else can I talk about here with this motor? Oh, we got the lifters out. Pretty interesting little design. Solid lifters, flat tappet on it. There's just gunk on there, don't mind the spots. Little adjusters sitting on the top of them. You can adjust these, adjust your valve lash. These are for the intake. They got the little dish for the push rod to go up through the head. So remember, the intake valves are in the head, the exhaust valves are in the block. So it's kind of a combination design. I've got that sitting there. We've got one or two things left to take apart on the motor. We got like a valve, for lack of a better term, in the side of the block that looks like it goes to the water jacket. It's giving us fits, trying to come out. We put some heat to it yesterday. Excuse me. I think I got a sneeze in there. It's bothering me. All right. So we got a whole mass of parts down here. We're gonna get that cleaned up. I'm gonna see if I can get a camera mount set up so I can actually show you some of the parts. I don't want to move the camera around because, you know, it just makes it dizzy and moving and all that sort of stuff. I'm gonna close this video out for now and see if I can upload this from this new camera, and we'll go from there.